welcome to another episode of Borderless Diaries, the podcast. Today I'm joined by Pascal. He is originally from Germany and he's built an incredible career across different countries. He's now living in Miami. And what I love about his story, even later in life, that he chose to take the leap and that he's seizing the day. And we actually share a connection because we both did our MBAs in Australia virtually and across different time zones. So I know firsthand how much dedication that takes. And in today's episode, I really want to delve in deeper what that means in different stages of life and how you can seize the day and really build your career, but also your life abroad and what we can learn from that. So I'm very excited to welcome Pascal to today's episode. Pascal, welcome to Borderless Diaries, the podcast where we talk and discuss everything about living abroad, the stories that shaped us. And yeah, welcome to one of the episodes of Borderless Diaries.
Thank you for having me, Simone. Looking forward to a fun session.
Yeah, me too. So every guest starts with the same question. What was one of the most unforgettable, funny, or downright awkward experience that you've had while adjusting to a new life abroad?
Well, I think there were numerous funny situations, specifically in hindsight. And I'm not sure if in each and every situation I perceived them so funny, like misunderstandings and stuff like that. But honestly, there was one very particular story that stuck with me. And I like to tell this story even today, even though it happened 20 years ago. Just a couple of weeks after I arrived in China, when that was my first time living abroad, I saw elderly people in a park in the middle of Shanghai, all of them walking backwards. Yeah, exactly. I just see your facial expression. This is how I felt. The problem is, Simone, I had worked very late the night before, and I had to get up very early to drive to the manufacturing side of the company I worked for. So maybe I had some 4.5 or 5 hours of sleep. And then in those early morning hours, I saw those elderly people all walking back, and I felt like this can't be true. So is it the lack of sleep, or did I drink something I don't remember? So it was so tough, and it was really in my first weeks there. That means I didn't really have trustful relationships with locals that I could just like approach and ask what is going on there. So I start to research, but like 20 years back, there was no AI tool that you just like, you prompt this question, then you get like all the explanation and all the reasoning behind. So it took some weeks until I really somehow found the courage, and I perceived the situation to be right, to ask a local colleague about that. And he explained it to me. It's a health situation. So supposedly when we walk backwards, we are activating certain parts of our leg muscles that are not activated when walking regularly. And since the Chinese culture is very much focused on health and improving your health situation, etc., this is what people do. I don't know if this is true for the entire culture. It's definitely true for the area in Shanghai where I lived, and it was not the only time that I saw them. So different parks, different situations, but always in the morning. But it was really because you asked about something awkward, and of course it's not. But at this very moment, I perceived it awkward, right? Because it was so little intuitive. I would have not expected that, so it stuck with me. So this was definitely one of those experiences.
I can imagine that. Even when you told the story, I was like, why on earth would they do that? So I can only imagine if you're actually in that moment and you see that happening, that you're first questioning, is it a lack of sleep? Is there something that spiked my drink, perhaps? Like, what
That's
happened here?
precisely how I felt.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that is actually a pretty unforgettable experience, I think, when you moved abroad. So, Pascal, take me a little bit through your journey because, as you mentioned, China was one of the first countries or the first country where you moved abroad. You've lived in different parts of the world. Where did your story start?
I was born and raised in Germany. Actually, China was officially not even the first one. And I think that that's not correct what I said, because during my mandatory year of military service in Germany, which back then still existed, I actually spent 2 months in your home country. I lived 2 months in the Netherlands. But then China was my first expatriation, so I was sent there by a company. I came back to Germany. I worked for a German company. I worked there very many years, and then I was given the chance, like some 10 years later, to go to Mexico. And I moved to Mexico City, spent there 3 years. I moved back to Germany again for 3 years. I then decided, or we as a family decided to move back to Mexico. And then from Mexico, we moved to the United States. So we're living in Miami right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that is quite a journey, I will say. I've always said, well, we knew each other from our master's degree that we did in Australia, which is also kind of also a different type of,
Absolutely.
yeah, a broad experience, I would say, because you meet so many people from different countries and different cultures living through all of these countries. What stood out to you? What shaped you the most along the way?
Um, I think it's probably harder for me to say that than for others that have known me for many years. But I'm pretty sure that everyone would tell you that my time living in Mexico and meanwhile being married to a Mexican um, has definitely changed me in a sense that I'm more laid back and less German. Let's say it like this. But I think that each and every of those experiences, and you just said that, and I completely agree with what you said about the master's degree at the university in Australia, even though we haven't lived there being exposed to this culture by being in the same virtual classroom, like 80% of the classroom filled with Australians. Of course, you are very much exposed to this culture as well. But like all of those experiences, I think they somehow shape us, partially unconsciously and partially consciously. And I like that because it's a great opportunity. Because no one says just because your passport is A or is B, you have to believe in A or in B, or you have to act this way or that way. So like we can all define how we want to live our lives, right? I think it's all about shaping our individual value system. And if I see a certain element in one culture that I have been exposed to that I want to adapt to my value system, I'm free to do that, right? And I can also say, well, even though it's part of the tradition of a country I lived in, or even where I was born and raised, I can eliminate that if I don't like it. So it means all of those experiences somehow shape us. But I think coming back to the question, a more Latin American relaxed lifestyle and being a little bit more laid back is definitely something that I think shaped me most.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, we're both from kind of a Nordic countries, and we have the tendency to be very controlled way of living or kind of looking forward, fast thinking. And what I like about being exposed, like you say, in different cultures and different lifestyles, you can adapt those things that fit you and where you can grow in, and that shapes you to be kind of
Absolutely.
a new person and to learn through all of that. So I really like that, and I think I haven't been to Mexico yet, but maybe I should put that on my list because I can use that relaxedness as well.
Highly recommendable.
Yeah, exactly. And most recently, you decided to move from Mexico to Miami. What made you say yes to that opportunity?
Well, as you just said, it was an opportunity, and I would rather ask a counter question. What's the reason to say no?
Yeah, that's true.
So this time it was comparably easy because if there is an opportunity
Yeah.
and you're given the choice, then of course you can decide for it or against it. And honestly, there are not many reasons rationally, according to my value system, my priorities, or when I say my, it's ours, like as a family, but not many reasons to think twice for Miami. It was a little different when we took the decision to go back from Germany to Mexico because that was our own decision. I decided to leave the company I was working for. The same was true for my wife because we sat down and we thought about what's the best place to live for us right now in this very stage of our lives. With three kids, three different age groups, etc. Life in Germany was a little bit more complicated. Yeah. So all of those kids are in different daycare facilities or schools. So it means commuting is a mess because there is no system in place that somehow picks up kids at home as it exists, for example, in Mexico. So this is where we said it's so much easier to just like go back to Mexico City, where the private schools take care of all the logistics, right? And mom and dad can also work. It's almost impossible in different circumstances. So that was a deliberate decision that we took back then, thinking broadly, what's the best place to live for us right now? Right now, for Miami, it was more about there's the opportunity, we're approached, and we can decide yes or no. That's straightforward, right? It was easier.
Yeah, but I admire that from you because obviously we've spoken before as well. And I think your mindset just to seize the day, think forward, but like grab the opportunities that are coming and making those decisions. I think it's very admirable. And I think a lot of people can learn from those experiences and that mindset of as well of, hey, you're not bound to the borders around you. Um, and you can shape your own way and living and you can go for those opportunities. You've had quite a strong career as well, but you always kept that ongoing learning mindset as well, which is how we connected via the MBA. What made you invest in yourself that others can learn from that continuous mindset and seize the day and taking those opportunities, you think?
Simona, I wished I could stand here and tell you that I had figured it out right from the beginning and I always had this lifelong learning mindset. Actually, nothing could be further from the truth. So me deciding at a late stage from an academic learning perspective, most likely to actually engage in this experiment of an online MBA, I was strongly supported, if not, if I say pushed, that's maybe too harsh, but like by my wife, strongly encouraged. Yeah. Until she really had like so strong arguments, like reusing my arguments always when discussing certain things with others, that I felt like I have no choice. Yeah, it really rationally it makes sense, but it didn't feel right. So rationally, yes, but my heart was not ready. So I just like I took the decision, I signed up, and honestly, this MBA program also helped me a lot developing this learner mindset because we learned so much in many of those classes about that, right? Then it really stuck with me, and I was wondering why didn't I do that beforehand, right? So why did it take so long? So it was something that I only developed a little later than I could have, definitely. And since then, I'm really enjoying it because there are so many things out there that we can learn. So you can learn each and every day something new, and you will never come to a stop, right? And it starts with you defining yourself and your career, like who you are as a professional. And that for me has also changed dramatically due to new experiences. I would have never expected that I leave a corporate multinational company deliberately to pursue different things. Right now, I'm supporting startups as a board advisor. I'm writing a book about change management. I have founded my own LLC and do consulting work. So it's like it's completely different, which is also learning at the same time while practicing something new. So it's just like it's a leap of faith, I would say, that it requires.
I really like that because I resonate with that. I think if you talk to the people that I grew up with and ask, "Oh, why would Simone do an MBA?" They would all say, "No way that she would do that." And I think the different way of learning as well that resonated with me, where I was like, I don't want to do that traditional in school. And I was kind of like, oh, am I going to learn economics in the sense of here you have an economics book? But the way that our master's degree was shaped, it was more about learning more about yourself and how can you change your point of view and see different perspectives And I think
Right.
it shaped so much. And then also getting in touch with people from those different countries and backgrounds. And I think that that shaped so much about who I am and my kind of continuous learning mindset. So I definitely recognize what you say there as well. You mentioned briefly your change management book as well, but how did your entire journey and then taking the MBA as well, but also your recent move to Miami, how did you come to kind of that changed mindset?
You mean change mindset in the sense of being open
Yeah,
to something new? It's yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not even sure if I have a good answer because, well, a mindset is probably formed over time, right? You don't wake up and you take the decision. Now my mindset is differently. I I want to think differently about the same situation as you. No, this is not how it works.
yeah,
It is, and this is what I would always recommend to each and everyone. It's not so much about the formal learning. Yeah, of course, you can read books about like how a positive mindset and a growth mindset has positive consequences, etc. And I don't want to downplay the effectiveness of all of that. But I think it is specifically the informal learning. So exposing yourselves to new people, listening to them with the intent to understand, right? And trying to really seek the learning in each and every opportunity. Just like talking to someone, not because you have set up a certain meeting and you want to talk about ABC, but just like while you're talking, you realize that's an interesting thought, or this is an interesting experience that this person just talks about. I want to understand a little more. And I also want to understand, maybe go a little deeper. I want to understand how they felt, why they experienced that, what that made with them, etc. So we always have numerous of opportunities to learn, but it is a mindset. And I think while exposing ourselves to these situations that allow you to learn, there's a certain reinforcement loop, right? And then you realize, oh yeah, because I did that, because I had an open mind, and because I really asked those questions, because I really tried to understand and to learn, I actually learned as a consequence. And then you feel like, oh yeah, that's probably helpful. That's the right thing to do. And then it becomes more and more like a routine. But was there just like one very moment where I developed this mindset? No, probably not. I think it just like it shaped over time. And as I said before, so even thinking about like lifelong learning, the concept, it took me many years to get there.
yeah. And but I think it does start with the what struck out to me is that maybe curiousness.
Mm,
That it starts with that spiked kind of like that learning mindset or the open-minded to have that changed mindset in that sense. But I really like the way that you frame that you need to expose yourself to people and have the real conversation, learn from each other and about each other. That really helps shapes who you are as a person as well.
absolutely.
Yeah, and in those because you moved in different ages as well. You were in different mindsets or maybe different situations in several stages of your life. I think for some people they would say it's too late for me right now. What would you say to those people that are in different stages of their lives and why would they need to maybe reconsider kind of hey, there's still an opportunity, it's different maybe, but what would you say to
Well, when we think about benefits that come with taking such a step and exposing yourself to a new culture by moving abroad, I think it's never too early and never too late. Yeah, I think it's easy to say that, but there is no rule, right? So since we never stop learning, since we never stop growing as a person, of course, there's also not like a cap in terms of, well, once you have passed this number of age, forget about it. You can't make it. No, on the opposite, it might even be a little easier because you have more life experience that might help you. You definitely have more maturity. So when I moved to China the first time, I was 24 years old, and my mental maturity process was
yeah.
still ongoing, clearly. So it means many things that I have done and many attitudes that I now in hindsight can observe in myself, I would definitely do differently right now. So that means a certain age might even be a benefit. And I would always recommend to always ask ourselves the question, what's the worst thing that could happen if I take the chances, if I just like go for it, even though it pushes me out of my comfort zone? What's the worst thing that could happen? Because then I don't know the downside and I can oppose the downside to the upsides, which is almost unlimited, right? And if you then blend in a little bit of cost of inaction, so to say, yeah. So what you are missing, and you might always ask yourself years later, what if only I had done ABC, right? Then maybe the equation shifts a little bit and you feel more motivated to take those steps.
Yeah, because that is so true as well. I think the mindset of instead of just do it, the what if, and just to learn from, hey, what's the worst that can happen? And I
Mhm.
think to live by that, I think it opens up different doors and different opportunities as well, because you will seize the day more, I think, and just take the opportunity as they come. And I'll obviously also need to work for it, and different stages will represent different mindsets and different learning processes. um, if you look at the different stages that you had, you were 24 years old when you moved to China, then later in life you moved around as well, and to Mexico, back to Germany. What did each of those stages represent to you?
Good question, because there are huge differences, at least in my very specific situation. Because when I moved to China back then, I moved on my own. I moved alone. So it's so much easier to just like take the decision. First, it was an expat assignment. That means there's an end date with it. That also like diminishes any kind of risk of I don't like it and what happens if, because there's always the return ticket, right? And I didn't have to think about anyone else. When I moved to Mexico, it was an assignment by the company when I moved there the very first time, but it was still without kids. Different situation. When we moved from Mexico then to Germany, it was with kids and it was a completely different situation. When we moved back then from Germany to Mexico, no support whatsoever by any company. It was really like a family decision. We are now shifting our place of living somewhere else. Again, kids are involved. Of course, you're more concerned about kids because ultimately for us as adults, it doesn't really matter too much where we are living, right? Because you normally throughout the week, you work. And if you are sitting in an office, if you're working in an office, in Mumbai or in San Francisco or in Helsinki, I don't know, doesn't really make a huge difference, most likely. So it means what makes a difference is certainly then the weekends and the leisure time. But for kids, it's different. And because it's like the influence of some of the most influential years that they have in terms of growing up, etc. And of course, they are not the ones making the decision. So of course, you ask yourself twice, is that the right step? Because I'm exposing my kids without them having a say in it, yeah, depending on the age. That was completely different. And then, of course, the same was true when then moving from Mexico to the US. It's it requires you to think broader and less selfishly.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine, but it's also such a unique opportunity. I think if I look back at my childhood, and while we didn't live abroad, my father especially, he worked in several countries for smaller projects and traveled around on business trips. And many times either we were there with him or we were exposed to the stories, etc. And I always had that international mindset, I think, as a child, to be like, I wish I had that when I grow up.
Mm.
And I think it's so amazing that your children are seeing that and have different perspectives, because they learn so much at that young age and have that life that really enriches them, I think, to become good human beings and have those different perspectives to bring that all in your childhood. I think is such a unique opportunity, and I think it's very admirable that you're doing that together with your family and going through all of those types of changes. If you look at one of the countries that you live in, and now here in Miami, being brought up in Germany, what is one of the biggest differences that you see having now a life here in Miami?
Well, Miami is a very special place, I would say, because it combines, and this is probably why I also like it. It combines the Latin American lifestyle with first world infrastructure. So it feels like a little bit of best of both worlds. And that is very different, specifically in the lifestyle, from what I know from Germany. I think that indeed is the biggest difference.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. So we're
Plus the weather.
yeah, oh, we're not missing the weather back home. No, I can imagine that. So before we're gonna wrap up, I do have a couple of quick fire questions for you, and I think will be a little bit about what you mentioned just now as well. What do you still miss the most about Germany?
That's clearly driving at 240 kilometers per hour on a German highway,
Yeah,
legally allowed.
yeah, exactly. Just a little side note, it is legally in Germany.
It is.
And
It's the only country where it is allowed. Yeah, and I think the automotive lobby is so strong that it's not never going to change. No,
no, no, I don't think so either. You're definitely known for that, but also quite honestly, the Autobahn is in such good condition as well. It's funny
it
because like
is.
driving around in those different countries, like the I don't know how they do it, but like the highways and the system and infrastructure in Germany is yeah, unmatched around the world, I think. Yeah, that's very true. And what do you love the most now being in Miami?
Yeah, I think I probably touched on that already. So it's really it's a perfect blend of the laid back lifestyle with all the opportunities and all the positive aspects of the US infrastructure, definitely. And I like the weather. I know that many people also complain about the weather. It's humid. That's true. But having the chance to wear shorts each and every weekend, no matter which month, it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it is great. And I think a lot of people complain about it, but they have probably didn't grow up in the Netherlands or Germany. We will take this.
Absolutely.
Oh, if you could sum up your career, but also your international life in one sentence and one piece of advice for the next generation, what would it be?
Oh, that's almost presumptuous right now. But I think it is the beauty lies in exposing yourself to new opportunities, always having an open mindset,
Yeah.
and specifically enjoy every single moment. Because yeah, life can be hard, no doubt about that. But I can always focus on what I don't like or what is difficult right now, or I see the silver lining or see the learning in it. It's all about our mindset again. And my mood definitely changes when I focus on the positive as opposed to the negative.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and I've always admired that about you. We've done a couple of classes together and we kept in touch. I think your mindset is something that I think is super powerful and I'm learning a lot from you as well. So one of the big takeaways about the story in your career in your life, not everything is linear and that it's never too late to take those opportunities and have that positive mindset, seize the day. And I think that that is a perfect reminder that you gave us in today's podcast. So, Pascal, I really want to thank you for your time, your guidance, and your wisdom that you had while living all in all of these beautiful countries. So, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you for having me, Simone. Thank you so much. It was fun.
Good. Good. Well, everybody that's listening, please drop us a follow, share some comments, and we're excited for next week's episode as well. So stay tuned and we will see each other very soon. Thank you, Pascal.
Thank you.